fell into this other world. He started with nothing, and it ends today. Yu Seungwoo, his level was 255, with 3 others accompanying him. Today, they defeated the ultimate demon king. Happy from their achievement, Goddess Gaia came and showed her belief in them. Her smiling annoyed Yu Seungwoo because she bestowed good abilities, weapons, and the strongest party members upon others, but to him she gave nothing. She cited the reason for this as not having enough divine power due to summoning too many otherworlders. The goddess was also shocked by Yu's strength, deeming it impossible for a human. She came to reward them and asked for their wishes. The green guy expressed a desire to go to the next battlefield, hoping for a great cause. The girl said she didn't really want anything since she had a great adventure with her comrades. The guy with the bow and arrow asked for the power to travel through any dimension and use weapons. The goddess agreed to help him with dimensional travel but noted the limitation regarding weapons. She inquired about the reason for the weapons, and the bow guy explained it was for a revolution, advocating for the races that had been excluded and bullied. She then asked Seungwoo for his wish. After contemplating, as he already had plenty of gold and money, and power and fame could be acquired anytime, he decided against those. Being at level 255, he could already travel dimensions and conquer worlds. He began to imagine himself sitting in a good restaurant, enjoying his favorite dish. Goddess interrupted him, asking if he was reminiscing about the past, to which he furiously replied, yes, remembering the days when he had just been summoned to the other world without even a single potion. After much thought, Seungwoo decided to return to his hometown and open a restaurant. Everyone was shocked. He wanted to introduce the people of his hometown to the cuisine of this world. Since Earth's dishes were already common there, it had to be food from this world to be meaningful. The goddess interrupted, stating that the food from this world was the worst of all dimensions. Seungwoo removed his sword and stabbed it into the ground, saying that it wouldn't be fair if he were the only one to taste such lousy food. Seoul, a city of wealth and peace where lights would stay on even until dawn. However, following the emergence of gates and monsters, the name Seoul disappeared without a trace. The city was filled with monsters here and there. On a rooftop from a distance, 2 people were standing and examining the place. One of them was among the top 100 highest level hunters. The second one seemed like his colleague. The hunter's name was Baek Kang-hyuk. He lit his latest cigarette and started having a word with his colleague. They were talking about closing some gates. He was sick of working overtime, and he had no idea what was going on in the city. His colleague informed him that this place is a danger zone, Zone S. She informed him that for the last 4 days, many monsters were appearing. Baek pointed out a monster and said it was moving as if it were being chased by a savage beast. She confirmed that the second order, SSS, said the same thing. She also informed him that the boss might appear soon and she refrained him from smoking. Baek was annoyed by the rain as well, and he said that he'll be taking a 2-day break because he was not in the mood. Standing at the center of the city, he was looking at someplace. After a while, he decided on a place, a small restaurant. He decided if the food tastes bad here, then they should be ready to take down their sign. On the other hand, if the food is delicious, then he will scold them for making him eat every day and night. The note on the door said closed, but he was not in the mood to listen today. He broke the sign, opened the door, and went inside. Seungwoo is the owner of the small restaurant. He was making a list of the remaining utensils to purchase. He was not in a hurry as it was just 4 days since he came to Earth. He planned to watch a movie and to have a cup of coffee. While he was enjoying his time, Baek entered the restaurant. Seungwoo informed him that they were not officially open yet, but Baek didn't care enough and asked to serve him something good. In his mind, Seungwoo was thinking that this guy ruined his movie time, and he's talking informally on their first meeting. Seungwoo took a good look at Baek and judged him as if he were some weakling, poor, and pitiful kid. Baek angrily stopped him from giving a pitiful look and informed him that he was the first order. While he was talking, Seungwoo started looking for something to feed him. He decided to serve him something precious, the shoulder meat found between the long neck and wings of a red dragon. If you compare it to pork, it's like pork scotch. The red dragon meat contains the spirit of the flame because of that. It has quite a strong taste of fire, and you have to baste it with fruit juice for it to have a luxurious taste. Seungwoo also added grape juice to it. He thought it must have a good effect on his first customer. A scream came out of the meat. Baek thought he misheard something. Baek asked Seungwoo if the meat had just screamed. Seungwoo denied and said it's probably nothing. He completed preparing the dish for him. Baek noticed Seungwoo and said he was incredible, also praised his fire show. The smell of the cooked steak had a slight fruity scent, decent. Everything was amazing about the look of the food. Baek was ready to eat the food, but before that, he asked the name of this dish. Roux steak, said Seungwoo. Baek said he had never heard of this, but he'll try it this time. He tried to cut a piece of it but was unable to do so. He complained about the rigidity of the meat. Seungwoo offered to cut it for him. In his mind, Seungwoo thought that this weakling would not be able to cut through this because Kael'Ruz was a very strong opponent. The meat was from the elder red dragon Kael'Ruz. For 18 years, he had been the elder of the red dragons and was the demon king's right hand. Even Seungwoo had a hard time defeating him. Beak couldn't believe that Seungwoo could cut it so easily. Beak took a bite of it, and he started throwing flames from his mouth. His whole mouth was burning. Beak shouted that it doesn't taste good. Seungwoo accepted and said that's the food you eat for survival and strength. That's what makes it a horrific dish. Somehow Beak was not able to throw up this tasteless piece of meat. His only option was to swallow it. Beak fainted for 1 hour. When he stood up, he tried to hit Seungwoo, but Seungwoo was able to block his kick without even changing his facial expression. Seungwoo called Beak a weakling and flicked his finger on Beak's forehead, and he was flown away. Seungwoo was annoyed that he tried to punch him again. He decided to go to sleep, but before that, he checked what could the first order be for him to make such a fuss about. On the internet, it said a group of the 100 strongest hunters in the world. Seungwoo was shocked as this weakling who was lying down was one of the 100 strongest hunters in the world. Seungwoo started thinking if the hunters are this weak, Earth seems screwed. A thought came to his mind, and he grinned. Due to the sudden appearance of the gates, a new job was created to fight against the ever-increasing number of monsters, and the top 100 strongest hunters in the world were granted the title First Order. Inside Seungwoo's restaurant, Beak was apologizing to Seungwoo. Seungwoo asked if he was apologizing because Seungwoo was stronger than him, or if he goes around doing this in other restaurants too. Beak recognized that he was a foreigner. Beak was sure that if he made any mistake or made him angry, Seungwoo could just kill him in an instant. Seungwoo forgave him and decided to make him into a new person. He also informed him that as he was a First Order, he needed to get stronger to protect this planet. Seungwoo started lecturing him about how he was going to educate him and make him a better person. Beak decided to refuse, but the look on Seungwoo's face made him scared, and he accepted to be in his care. The lecture began again. Seungwoo kept on speaking for a long time. He might have said enough words to build a 14-floor apartment. Seungwoo said his past job was a middle school teacher. He decided to teach him a valuable lesson about the importance of food. Beak, with anger, said, "You call that food?" Seungwoo was angry as well and said he shouldn't be talking like this to someone who spent his time making the food for him. Seungwoo forced him to eat the dish completely and shoved the food into his mouth. Beak collapsed on the floor. Seungwoo knew that he's going to throw up, cry, and make a fuss about it when he wakes up. He didn't want that and wanted to make sure that he digested it all. Seungwoo took Beak to his basement. Meanwhile, in the ISAC headquarters, Beak's colleague was tense as they lost contact with Beak 2 days ago. Support team leader, Second Order, Min O'Keefe was there. They summoned him for the very same reason. Min thought that the First Order is not weak enough to get kidnapped by someone or beaten. He guessed that he was hiding after causing trouble, or it could be a girl. Beak's colleague was concerned as they only had 1 day to prepare for the boss. Min went out in search of Beak. He didn't want to use his skill to find troublemakers like Beak. He kneeled down and dropped a few tears on the ground, and he sensed his presence. Min reached outside Seungwoo's restaurant. He easily opened the door with a lockpick. He started looking for Beak, but Seungwoo saw him and asked, "You know what a trespasser is, right?" After a while inside the basement, Beak was mining the rock. He saw Min there and thought he finally came to rescue him, but he informed him that he was caught too. Both Beak and Min were mining down there in the basement. They both started discussing how they ended up in a situation like this despite being so powerful and holding the titles of First Order and Second Order. Min asked him why would he piss off someone like Seungwoo, a monster. They both agreed that from his looks, he didn't seem to be this dangerous. Min picked up the equipment, and Beak asked him if he was going to continue mining. No more relaxing. Min said it's better than relaxing. He'll kill the person who pissed off a monster. As an apology, Beak was doing most of the work. They discussed how the boss was going to arrive soon and how important it was for them to be out there. They decided to just go and talk to Seungwoo about the situation and thought that he'll understand. Seungwoo understood and allowed them to go. Both were in deep shock as it was this easy to get out of this. Seungwoo took the full name of Min, and Min was curious how he knew about him, which he just googled. As they were leaving, Seungwoo decided to cook something for both of them. Beak said the food doesn't taste good. Seungwoo knew Beak would say something like this and gave him an offer to decide whether he wanted to eat something tasty or horrific. Beak chose tasty and thought he'd choose horrific. Min thought it couldn't be this simple and went for the other option, which was horrific. Beak asked Min why he would choose something horrific to eat. Min, on the other hand, was also questioning himself. Meanwhile, Seungwoo was cooking with all his effort. To get rid of the fish odor, Seungwoo was using both salt and cooking wine at the same time. By using this technique, the fish odor disappears in an instant. It's almost like a magic trick. He was almost done with Beak's order. He asked Min if his heart or liver were weak by any chance. Min agreed that his heart and liver were a bit sensitive. Seungwoo thought he won't be able to feed him a normal war dish. Beak made fun of Min about how he couldn't even last 5 minutes in the war without gasping for air. Listening to which, Seungwoo decided to make some medicinal food for him. Seungwoo served Beak the salmon. It looked delicious, and the taste was superb. Seungwoo also gave him the sauce, which tasted even better. It was now Min's turn. Min was confused if he could make tasty food like salmon. Why would he make food that doesn't taste good? He decided to ignore the taste and find out the truth behind this. The food arrived for Min. The color of the dish was crystal blue. They asked Seungwoo if he put uranium in it. Seungwoo denied. While Beak was complaining about it being completely inedible, Min was looking at the dish carefully. He picked up a spoon and checked it even more carefully. He noticed that this dish contained the same effect as a healing potion. Min was curious as to how he prepared this so quickly. Even the professionals can't make it this fast and smooth. Min was about to say the name of the dish, but Seungwoo shut him. Min tried one spoonful of it and noticed that he was being healed, though it tasted like he was chewing lead. But he was sure if he wants to heal his body, he has to eat it. He had a quote in his mind that says, "If you wish to die, you shall live. If you wish to live, you shall die." After 30 minutes, Beak completed his food and thanked Seungwoo for this amazing dish. He checked upon Min. He was completely numb. Min's injured kidney was completely healed, and his magic power returned to normal. It's been a while since he has felt this good. Min thanked Seungwoo for his kindness. Beak asked for another bowl and kept eating until he was completely full. Min asked Seungwoo, "If the boss appears tomorrow, could you help us fight it?" But Beak stopped him, saying just because Seungwoo is strong doesn't mean he has to fight for our sake. Beak acted tough and said if he stopped in our work, it would be easier, but what would happen after that? We would lose our chance to grow stronger. Min stopped him and asked him not to act so clever here in front of him. The real reason he didn't want Seungwoo to fight for them was if he joins the boss raid, the Hunter Association will find out about him, and he will be entered into the First Order. Rank 100 will be dropped to rank 101 and lose their coat. Min told about what kind of thinking Beak has, and Seungwoo decided to make him a real person. Seungwoo has seen kingdoms who depend on only one hero several times, but they all ended the same way, they all were destroyed. Min decided to take his leave and not to waste any more of Seungwoo's time. Seungwoo asked them to stop by occasionally and asked Beak to come more often. While they were walking towards their house, they were discussing how great it was to meet someone like Seungwoo. Beak was not concerned more, but Min said he'll realize it one day. The boss monster appeared the next day. Both Min and Beak were ready to fight this boss monster who just entered Earth. Both of them were feeling even more confident than before. It was on the news that Sector was designated as a rank danger zone. Everyone was praising First Order Beak and Second Order Min for their bravery, and how they teamed up to defeat the monster. The threat was successfully eliminated. Seungwoo was watching all of this in the news. Seungwoo was really happy for both of them, and it was a relief that they did well. Later Seungwoo revealed that the real reason the gates formed was actually because he came to Earth. While he was moving dimensions, the more sensitive monsters must have run out after sensing he was in critical condition. So now he was placing the safety of this world in the hunter's hands. 1 week was left for the opening. While he was thinking about what to wear today, he saw that someone was outside the door. A cat was standing outside with a box in his hand and said that your delivery has arrived. A cat that came to Seungwoo's restaurant was very obedient, and he could talk as well. He asked Seungwoo's permission to sit on the chair. It was Ailuro's. It may look like a cat and inhabit one, but it's extremely smart and bright. It cooks well since it has more taste buds than a human, and it has an extraordinary sense of smell and hearing. The cat loves to take care of others too. It was a workaholic, medic, and much more. In warrior terms, it is the best support. However, it serves people so well that it makes the warrior turn into lazy pigs. It's been nicknamed a cat that kills warriors, which is the very exact reason why Seungwoo wanted an Ailuro's. He kept on asking for an Ailuro's, but the goddess was way too busy to listen to Seungwoo's request. Seungwoo asked Renato for pudding slime, but along with that, he even sent an Ailuro's too. Seungwoo said to the cat that he is not a warrior anymore and he was a restaurant owner. If your fur gets all over the place, he won't be able to run his business properly. The cat asked him that he don't shed his fur. To prove this, he asked Seungwoo to pull his fur. Seungwoo asked the reason for the cat to come here. The cat informed that he knocked out the god and came here. The cat explained that he asked his god to send him to Seungwoo, but the god kept declining his request, saying Seungwoo was very dangerous, and which is why the cat wanted to be with Seungwoo because for him he was cool. But the god decided to leave the cat alone. That way he'll eventually find a different warrior. The cat got an idea that his request was being denied because he was not a good fit for the warrior. He lacked the skill to be with the warrior, so he decided to start training. He trained very hard and started reading many books of good warrior. He decided to be with Seungwoo. He had to have both strength and wisdom. He trained hard and knocked the god just to be with Seungwoo. Seungwoo informed the cat that he was already retired, but he can still hire him as an employee. The cat was happy, and since his name was Naobai, Seungwoo gave him the nickname Nabai, and that's how an employee was hired at the warrior's restaurant. Two men from a distance using binoculars were having a look at Seungwoo's restaurant. They thought it was a competition and decided to go and crush this enemy who just came to this place. Little did they know they were entering into Seungwoo's restaurant, who could slice a head of a monster with his sword using one hand. The two individuals who were keeping an eye on Seungwoo's restaurant made a move towards his establishment. They decided to enter the restaurant and noticed the expensive coffee maker by the window. These two individuals were owners of their respective cafes. Running a restaurant and a cafe together was an affront to them as chefs. They resolved to drive Seungwoo out of business after the first order, similar to the previous cafe. As they approached the restaurant's door, they noticed two bouquets from the first and second orders, wishing Seungwoo well. They were shocked, realizing he had already made connections with those individuals referred to as the first and second order. Some people even contemplated using bribes to convert the troops at the gates into customers. They were now more concerned about this restaurant and decided to return later when they were fully prepared. As they attempted to leave, Nabai tapped them from behind and inquired if they were customers. Nabai forcefully ushered them in, and they took seats at the customers' chairs while Nabai resumed his work. They were curious if the cat was a monster, but one of them remarked that it seemed like a well-educated furry cat. They decided to complain about the fur on the table. One of them wiped his finger on the table to check for fur but surprisingly found nothing. Everything was immaculately clean. There wasn't even a speck of dust. The restaurant was exceptionally clean. Despite violating food sanitation guidelines 3 times, one of them couldn't find anything wrong with this place. Nabai explained that there was no fur because he doesn't shed. One of the owners was curious if they used any cleaning service, but Nabai informed them that he did all the cleaning. Both of them envied the cat and also desired someone like Nabai. Using hand signals, they both agreed that their first attempt at complaint was a failure, and decided to make a second attempt. They ordered today's special, and Nabai happily took the order and went inside. Seungwoo emerged. One of them guessed that the owner was a hunter, while the second one was busy scrutinizing Seungwoo's physical characteristics. Seungwoo effortlessly moved the heavy wok. The second owner interrupted him and reminded him why they were there. Their food was ready. Today's special was spicy stir-fried squid and rice. They attempted to make an allergy claim, but the ingredients were too obvious to dispute. As for the taste of the food, it surpassed their expectations. They both seemed to change their minds, praising Seungwoo's cooking style. They made excuses about how this restaurant differed from theirs, citing different foundations. They left after paying the bill and decided to return often. These two men, who initially intended to close the restaurant, left as fans. Nabai checked the blacklist sent by Kanghyuk, and both the owners who had just left were mentioned. Seungwoo was pleased that he had defeated them with just spicy stir-fried squid and rice. Later, Seungwoo remarked that he was not here to compete anyway and stressed the importance of working together to survive. His warrior habit remained in every aspect of life. Seungwoo was lost in his past memories, recalling the time when he fought in a coliseum. He had a heavy sword in his hand, and the people around him were chanting one thing: kill him, kill him. Seungwoo was the last one standing, his final opponent lying on the ground, and the crowd wanted Seungwoo to finish him off. He took his sword and stabbed beside the opponent's ear on the ground. Seungwoo didn't kill him. He was tired of acting as a gladiator slave. People started throwing paper or stones at him, as they were there to witness bloodshed. This was their form of entertainment, watching people kill each other. At that moment, Seungwoo just craved kimchi stew. Min finished his bowl of kimchi stew, bringing Seungwoo back to the present from his reverie. Seungwoo asked Min if this was his first time trying kimchi stew. Min, originally from the United States, explained that they were not familiar with dishes like kimchi stew. Min found the restaurant very quiet and peaceful. He enjoyed his meal. He wanted to inform Seungwoo about something. He mentioned that sometime this weekend, someone from City Hall would be inspecting his restaurant. They needed to check whether an Illuros was fit to work in the food industry and if they posed any threat to the residents here. Seungwoo remembered the last time someone came and told him how to apply as a returnee. Min mentioned that there was a manual for that, and they were figuring out how to respond to the gate incident since returnees were also affected. After all, there were many instances where people aimlessly entered this world. Today's test evaluator would also be a returnee, and Min emphasized that there should be no accidents. Nabai was busy cleaning outside the restaurant when suddenly, a man approached him from behind and said, "Excuse me." Nabai was startled, as it was sudden for him. The man then apologized to Nabai, explaining that he used to be an aspiring warrior. Nabai decided not to disturb Seungwoo, who was busy watching his movie. Nabai chose to handle this on his own and started preparing a meal for the guest. Nabai was unsure about the ingredients, but he still tried his luck and added some of them, including onions. The food was ready, but to the guest, it seemed more like kimchi porridge. Seungwoo emerged, and the guest introduced himself as Park Sunghan, also a returnee. Seungwoo assumed he must have had a hard time in Terra. He asked if Park Sunghan wanted to eat kimchi stew. Park Sunghan asked if he was being a bother because it was after operating hours. Seungwoo explained that he ran this restaurant as a hobby, so he started preparing the dish for him. Seungwoo began preparing the meal for the man, cutting the meat near the front leg of a pig, which is called the pork shoulder. He read the instructions in a book while making the dish. Though tough, the book mentioned that the depth of flavor comes from this toughness. It's a cut of meat that becomes more delicious when stir-fried. Nabai watched Seungwoo cook from a distance, and when he noticed, Seungwoo called Nabai closer. Seungwoo guided Nabai on how to make the dish, explaining the crucial points and how the spices work together. He informed Nabai about all the things that needed to be added in the proper order to make it more delicious. While Seungwoo was teaching him everything, Nabai wrote down all the steps in his notepad, also marking a star in front of the important points. Nabai was ready to prepare kimchi stew, but Seungwoo suggested he could try it later. They served the man, who guessed that he was not the only one craving it. Seungwoo found it strange that he didn't crave it when he was on Earth, but after going to another world, he really wanted to eat it. As the man took the first bite, he suddenly remembered home. It tasted like home. He started crying, mentioning he was on Terra for what meant 6 years had passed on Earth. Seungwoo had been there for 40 years, but on Earth it was only 9. There was no pattern for the years in different dimensions. The man informed them that he was a level 51 hunter. Seungwoo guessed correctly that he was a silver rank adventurer. Standing near a window, the man talked about how Terra is so different from Earth and how the gate management system here is perfect. Seungwoo asked him, "Did you not return of your own volition?" The man replied that he was hit with a banish while exploring the underground dungeon of pagans. Banish forcefully expels the victim from that dimension. He was lucky that from countless dimensions and earthlings, he was banished to Earth. The man mentioned he had a wife waiting for him and started crying. Nabai tried to wipe his tears, but Seungwoo was clearly bored. He decided to send him back. The man was shocked and ready to go back. Seungwoo snapped his fingers, and a magical hole opened below the man, sending him back to his wife and family. Nabai tried to tell Seungwoo that if he recklessly used dimensional travel, the goddess would be angry. Seungwoo didn't care about the goddess anymore. Nabai understood that he sent him back because he was annoying. Nabai took the food he made previously to Seungwoo and said, "I will give this to the pudding slime in the basement." Seungwoo took the food and said he was going to eat it. Nabai tried to stop him, saying he shouldn't eat it as he made it terribly. Seungwoo remembered the time when he was in prison, and a man named John came and informed him that today marked the 200th day since he entered the Colosseum. John then passed him a plate as a gift. Inside it was kimchi stew. Seungwoo asked John where he got it from. John informed him that a foreigner from another world brought an ingredient called kimchi and his belongings, and he bought it with a piece of copper in exchange. When Seungwoo opened the plate, he noticed it was kimchi porridge. Nonetheless, Seungwoo thanked him and said he wanted to eat it too. John was relieved. Seungwoo came back from his memories and said he remembered the kindness of people like John, rather than feeling anger towards the nobles who tossed people from other worlds into the Colosseum to make them kill each other for fun. He also mentioned that if John wasn't there, he would have become something like a calamity rather than a warrior. Seungwoo and Nabai went out for some shopping at Sector A Market. The market was bustling with people and stalls selling various food items. Seungwoo asked Nabai if he wanted anything to eat. Nabai replied that he would finish his hot dog first and then consider it. For Seungwoo, the most important aspects of a traditional market were the ambience and overall mood. They began their shopping, but nothing caught Seungwoo's attention. Everything seemed too common for him. Suddenly, something grabbed Nabai's attention, and he ran towards it. Nabai pointed at a large object placed outside a store. Seung-woo identified it as a clam, his first time seeing one so big. It seemed familiar to him, and he wondered if it could be a harajigas, a clam rumored to be snacked on by giants. When Seung-woo asked the owner about the clam, the woman said she had no clue about it, as her husband had picked it up. Seung-woo was shocked at its size. He estimated it to be over 200 kgs. The woman mentioned that her husband was quite strong. Seung-woo expressed his desire to buy it, although the woman informed him that it wouldn't open regardless of the tool used and was merely for decoration. Seung-woo insisted on buying it. Additionally, he wanted to purchase 10 mackerels, explaining that he ran a restaurant. Hearing this, the woman exclaimed, questioning why he was buying so little, and proceeded to give him more items. Seung-woo and Nabai thanked her and left. As Seung-woo lifted the clam by himself, the woman noticed his strength surpassed that of her husband's. Upon reaching the restaurant, Seung-woo stared at the clam, contemplating what to do with it. They decided to open it despite the woman's claim that it was impossible. However, Seung-woo managed to open it with his bare hands. Upon opening it, they discovered that the muscle inside was larger than Nabai. Seung-woo began preparing it raw, slicing a piece and dipping it into a sauce before eating it. He then decided to make clam chowder, a North American-style dish known for its relaxing and smooth taste. Seung-woo made plans for the dinner, intending to serve sliced raw clam and soju, and for breakfast the next day, clam chowder to cure his hangover. As he thought about preparing a dish for hunters, a strange smile crossed his face. He noticed a venomous pouch containing deadly poison, which, if survived, would grant poison immunity. While Seung-woo was preparing something, Min arrived and noticed the interesting activity. Seung-woo informed him that they were preparing a clam. Surprised, Min asked if he found it near the river, shocking Seung-woo, who hadn't realized harajigas could be found in rivers. Min explained that 2 days ago, residents had complained about a loud noise from the sewers, and hunters investigating the area had discovered a small dimensional fissure. Seung-woo and Min were having a conversation inside his restaurant. Seung-woo prepared clam sashimi for Min. Seung-woo asked about the rift that occurs before a gate forms, which was found in the sewers. Min also informed that since an abnormal situation could develop at any time, a special task force was dispatched by our headquarters. Seung-woo understood the reason why he hasn't seen Beak for so long. Min praised Seung-woo for slicing the clam so finely that it was almost transparent. Seung-woo informed that it is the best way to eat it. He also offered some chajang and sauce without wasabi. Min asked for sauce without wasabi. Seung-woo went into deep thought that there was someone who returned to work due to our ridiculous coincidence. And harajigas are being found in rivers. The species that often eats harajigas is the arrogant and violent gigantes who are over level 90. Seung-woo Ajay assumed that they definitely have something to do with this rift. Also, he noticed that it was too strange to just pass it off as a coincidence, and he also realized that all of this was happening because of him. Beak was waiting in the sewers. His colleague asked him to quit if he was really that annoyed being here. His colleague also told that if he was unable to write his resignation letter, she would be more than happy to write it for him. She was annoyed by his behavior, and she tried her best to be respectful for the past month, but now it was impossible for her. Beak was also annoyed because he gave up his holidays, and he was on standby here in the sewers. Beak said that it was not the kind of work that First ordered to do. His expectation with First Order work was like destroying monsters while being broadcasted live. His colleague informed him to leave this job and go into acting instead. While this conversation was going on between them, there was an outbreak. Everybody was alerted, all the soldiers came near. Beak was also ready. When her colleague tried to check the gate's rank, the meter was broken. Now the situation here was that somebody has to go inside the rift before it expands any further. Beak informed his colleague to use a stabilizer to stop the expansion and hold out until reinforcements arrive. His colleague informed him to take everyone with him, but Beak said it would be a burden to take everybody with him as Min was also not present at the moment. Before going inside the rift, Beak informed his colleague that he is going to go in with a stabilizer and stabilize the rift. But meanwhile, there is a place called Warriors Restaurant on the outskirts of Changjeonggung Palace. Explain the situation to the owner and bring him as soon as possible. Beak informed his colleague to say his name to the owner and back him for help. He also mentioned that it was the only way that we can survive. She ran away towards the restaurant. Beak took his cigarette from his pocket, but it fell down. A soldier standing nearby offered him a cigarette and said that he was looking pretty cool today. Beak asked them if they all were recording this on their body cams. Beak informed everyone that they need to handle the one that pops out, and by saying this, he entered the rift. Monsters began to come out of that same rift. A huge red monster came out along with many bats. Shooting them with a mere pistol was not enough. The soldiers thought it was the end of their life. But suddenly someone came with a sword and sliced them up in a single swing. It was none other than Seungwoo. Everybody there couldn't believe what they saw just now, where a group of soldiers with weapons loaded couldn't stop even a single one of them. A guy just stopped everyone with a single sword swing. Seungwoo killed every monster that came out of the rift. The soldiers were confused about what just happened. They couldn't see Seungwoo's face properly. Seungwoo then entered the rift to save Beak. The soldiers couldn't see him properly, but they were sure that they saw someone standing there. They confirmed that all the monsters were dead, and they started their scanning. Beak was hiding fearfully in a corner. He just managed to plant an energy screen. There were monsters inside that place. Their height was equal to a building apartment. They were huge, and there were 5 of them. They were confused about the screen part that Beak had just installed. The monsters started smashing the screen. Beak was worried that they were going to break it. Deep inside, he was waiting for Seungwoo to come and save him. While the monsters were smashing the screen, a piece of mirror was about to fall on Beak, but he managed to jump to a different place. However, he screamed as he switched his position, and the monsters noticed him. One of the monsters saw that he was hiding in the corner. They were sure that he must be the one who put up the screen. They started deciding among themselves what to do with Beak. One said, "Let's step on him." Another one said, "I think squashing him is better." Beak didn't give up. He started firing at them. But the bullets were not enough to harm them even a single bit. As they were about to crush him, Seungwoo entered the rift. Beak took a breath of relief. One of the monsters asked about Seungwoo. Another one said it's better to dodge him for now. But it was too late for the monsters. Seungwoo killed each one of them without using any of his strength. It was a piece of cake for him. Beak was shocked to see this, and he guessed that he is more than a monster. He suddenly remembered the time when he tried to hit him. A stone fell on Beak's head, and he fainted for a moment. Seungwoo came closer to him. Seungwoo wasn't planning to kill these giants, but they were trying to take over the earth. Seungwoo collected the artifacts and other materials, and also picked up Beak. He threw him outside the rift and was sure that the soldiers would take care of him. With this, the situation was handled perfectly. Seungwoo went back to his restaurant. Nabai was in trouble. A few guests came and were playing with Nabai as he was cute. But Nabai wasn't enjoying it at all. Seungwoo informed the people that he was an employee there. Hwang Jaehyun, First Order's colleague, was also present there. She had something urgent to discuss with him. Seungwoo was confused as he had just returned from the sewers. The reason behind this confusion was that the moment Beak told his colleague to go and reach out for help, Seungwoo sensed the danger before that and reached the sewers. Seungwoo understood what happened and asked Hwang to sit down. While having a cup of tea, Hwang and Seungwoo discussed the situation. Hwang informed Seungwoo that the gate was over S rank, so they were in urgent need of assistance. Seungwoo was laughing inside his mind, but he was proud of Beak's presence of mind. Hwang was worried, but Seungwoo asked her to relax and said that she would be getting some good news soon. Meanwhile, Seungwoo decided to help Nabai. Seungwoo was angry at the people as they were all just rude customers who didn't want to eat anything and were playing with Nabai, as if this was some sort of cat cafe. Seungwoo pushed everyone out of his restaurant. Seungwoo asked Hwang if she was also a hunter. She said yes, she works in the office, but she had her awakening. Seungwoo had a weird smile on his face, as making weird dishes for hunters was his favorite thing nowadays. Seungwoo said he was going to prepare a dish for her, but she was in a hurry as she was thinking that the situation was not handled yet. Seungwoo was angry because the number of hunters visiting had not increased in the past few days, but he was satisfied that the dishes that had an effect immediately after being eaten weren't too bad. They were perfect for capturing the attention of exhausted and tired hunters of today. Taking a look at Hwang, Seungwoo informed her that she had been feeling chills down her back as well as having cold symptoms recently. She said that it was inevitable due to overtime and not being able to return home. Seungwoo continued examining her and said that she was experiencing all this due to the cold seeping into her body. Hwang felt like she was not sitting in a restaurant but in a pharmacy. Seungwoo said that he had a perfect dish for people with cold bodies, and he went inside the kitchen. Seungwoo brought a bunch of things from Gigants earlier, and Hwang was confused about how he was acting so nonchalantly after listening to her explanation. She also guessed that he must be extremely strong if First Order went so far as to request his help. She checked her phone and noticed that the branch hadn't contacted her yet, so she assumed that someone had resolved it already. and she also guessed that it would be the same man cooking inside the kitchen. She started recalling the basic manual for dealing with the returnees. The first point was to be as careful as you would when handling explosives, but also to treat them as human beings. Seungwoo started preparing the dish for her. She asked Seungwoo about what he was adding as it looked delicious. Seungwoo informed her that it was clam chowder. She asked about what kind of clam it was. He informed it was harajigas. While they were talking, she noticed the monster clam inside his kitchen. She was shocked that he was about to make her eat a monster, but she couldn't act weird as it was written in the manual that returnees are like explosives if you refuse. So she just accepted her fate. The recipe to make clam chowder was first to stir-fry the garlic, potatoes, and bacon. The second was to add flour and stir-fry the potatoes and clams, then add in the milk and broth. And while continuing to stir, add in different manna, coating the ingredients with a thin layer of it. Stir well and continuously so it doesn't burn. The hot coop clam chowder was ready. She took the first sip and suddenly felt warmth. She felt like warming up in front of a fireplace after being frozen in the middle of winter. She removed her jacket as well. She thanked him and also mentioned that the dish made from the first monster she had ever eaten was delicious. Beak attends an S-rank meeting regarding gate hearings at the Hunters Association in the South Korean branch office. Beak informs Lee, the branch manager, about the incident that occurred. The manager asks about the identified monster, referring to Seungwoo. Beak attempts to make the manager understand that Seungwoo is not an unidentified monster, but merely a restaurant owner. However, the manager is confused, as a restaurant owner defeating dozens of monsters, potentially stronger than S-rank, in under 5 minutes seems improbable. Beak corrects the manager, stating that those monsters were indeed stronger than S-rank and that they even broke the measuring device. Manager Lee continues to inquire if the restaurant owner truly defeated so many monsters over S-rank. Beak grows bored with Manager Lee's questions and is ready to admit that he was the one who defeated them if they won't believe him. Manager Lee becomes concerned and angry, as a person with immeasurable strength appearing in the city is a significant issue, while for Beak, it seems insignificant. The manager's patience wears thin due to Beak's carefree attitude, but he remains calm and continues questioning. Beak tries to persuade the manager not to antagonize Seungwoo, as Manager Lee knows that provoking a returnee could devastate a city instantly. Beak then relays all this to the secretary and asks her to document it as he informed. Later, they decide to defer the decision to the higher-ups. Beak attempts to leave, but the manager becomes furious. Beak informs the manager that he plans to buy some land around the strongest attorney's restaurant. The manager appears to agree but then angrily smacks his clipboard on Beak, shouting that he finds Beak frustrating. Meanwhile, Min brings other hunters to Seungwoo's restaurant. Before entering, Min instructs everyone not to say anything rude. There seems to be some agreement between Min and Seungwoo. Min expresses gratitude to Seungwoo for saving them, and in return, they offer to help his business. Upon seeing Seungwoo, the other hunters initially perceive him as a mad killer with a shaggy beard. However, they soon notice his good looks, and everyone begins praising his appearance, likening him to an idol. As the food is served, everyone takes a bite and finds the dishes delicious. Seungwoo is pleased to have more promoters now, attracting other hunters to his restaurant. He plans to gradually and discreetly introduce them to monster meat. On a sunny day, Seungwoo walked through the market. He looked up at the sky and noticed that it had been cold until yesterday, but today it was hot. Overdressed for the weather, people stared at him, and he realized why it was so important to check the weather app before going out. Spotting a shop nearby, he entered, took an ice cream, and ate it. He realized that 9 years ago, there were 4 distinct seasons, but now the weather varied greatly every month. Seungwoo stood in front of a movie theater, holding a ticket for a movie starting in about 10 minutes. While excited for his movie, he heard a voice from a distance saying, "We exchange weapons." Turning to see, he noticed Nabai there with a little girl. He was happy for Nabai that he had already made a friend. But as he was running late for his movie, he decided to ask Nabai later on. The small girl saw Nabai staring at a store, trying to figure out what it was. She wanted to be friends with the cat and thought about how to make him her friend. Remembering her mother's advice about friends, she decided to get a chicken skewer for Nabai. When she offered the chicken to Nabai, he refused, saying it wasn't proper to eat something given by a stranger. The girl then asked him to be her friend. Nabai was happy as he got an earthly friend now. It seemed the girl's name was Yunha. The chicken was delicious. Nabai asked about the effect of the chicken skewer. Learning that there was no such effect, he thought it was useless to eat this dish. He worried he might become a piggy cat if he ate it. Yunha informed Nabai that he could eat just enough not to gain any weight and also told him about what her mother had said, that self-restraint and concentration are the most important things. All foods are bad for you if you eat too much, but it's okay if you eat them in moderation. Her mother also told her that it's important for people to experience things and that you have to eat a lot of delicious things to study well, grow, and exercise well. Nabai was shocked to realize that eating delicious foods had that kind of effect. Nabai and Yuna moved to another stall. Meanwhile, atop the ISAC headquarters, Beek and Min were gathered with a few soldiers. Beek was irate with Manager Lee because the president of the World Hunt Association was about to visit the disaster recovery area, Sector A, and inspect the sewers where the rift occurred. Such high-profile visits made military operations taxing. Beek decided to leave the search and destruction work to Name, as he was best suited for that. Min agreed and asked Beek to do the ground patrol properly just in case something happened. Beek was sad because others spent their time watching a movie or going on a date on their day off. However, he was here, patrolling the area. He activated his invisibility power and disappeared. In the sewers, a few goons aimed guns at Min. Little did they know about him. He quickly retrieved a knife from his pants pocket and rushed towards the enemies, successfully cutting their hands, causing their guns to fall. Min likened them to pests, expressing frustration that no matter how many they caught, there always seemed to be more. He was angry because these money-hungry gang members had no idea how much people were sacrificing to maintain society. Min asked his fellow soldier how many they had caught so far. The count was 13. Min ordered that they maintain their formation and advance. Meanwhile, tension filled the atmosphere at the ISAC headquarters. Manager Lee was taking a sip of water when suddenly the assistant rushed in, informing him of the power outage. Lee was shocked, considering the outage alarming, especially with so many personnel dispatched. The assistant explained that during Min and Support's operation against the gang members, there had been an incident at the electricity facility. Lee was worried that if that was the extent of the power outage, it could be as long as a year. She informed him that there was a person at the electricity board who was absorbing the energy. They quickly informed Min about this over the phone, assuming he might faint due to overload. Seungwoo was enjoying his movie with popcorn in hand when a very tense scene was interrupted by the screen going off. A man rushed in and informed them of the power outage, halting the screening. Seungwoo felt sad because it was his first movie in 40 years, a sequel to a series he had watched back then. Though he shouted in frustration, he knew nothing would change. Leaving the theater, he felt relieved as the power outage was outside their district. When faced with mounting anger and trivial incidents, he found himself stressed. Seeking relaxation, he thought of eating something. He took out a penguin-shaped ice maker, which he missed a lot. Since it was hot outside, he decided to have shaved ice cream, with red bean, jelly, and cereal sprinkled on top. However, he decided to have an alcohol-based shaved ice like his father used to have. His father told him that he would know what it tastes like when he becomes an adult. After freezing sugar and milk with magic, it went into the penguin's shaved ice machine. He poured a bit of sweetened condensed milk on top, added some fruits gifted by Min, and then added more fruits and the most important ingredient, alcohol. He looked for some alcohol in his refrigerator and took out a bottle he got after his first warrior win against the ruler of the devils. It felt like he was being frozen and melted at the same time. It burned away the stress with the warming alcohol and cooled his insides with cold ice. It was quite a rational way of thinking. He enjoyed it and understood what kind of mood his father was in when he ate this. Since he could now understand this, he believed he was an adult now. Nabai returned from the market with Yunha, seeking Seungwoo's permission before entering the restaurant. He was amazed by her manners. Seungwoo asked the two if they wanted to eat something. They both looked at each other and then at the penguin-shaped ice maker. Seungwoo made shaved ice for them, but he didn't add any alcohol this time because the kids were too young for that.